I would love to have been a fly on the wall when Rudiger and Jordan were speaking to each other. One bill must have been astronomical. Coming in there actually asking me, is there going to be welding jobs in the future? They were genuinely worried about the cobot situation, saying, well, is this going to take over the jobs?
Industry news, machine reviews, interviews, and a lot more right here on the Weld Like Bazza podcast.
The following conversation was recorded between myself and Callum from EWM UK. Callum started out his career in the welding industry as a service engineer and has recently moved into a more sales-orientated role within the company. We speak about good times, legends of the industry, past, present and future, and what we believe is the future of the welding industry, right here on the Weld Like Bazza podcast. Have you had hands-on with the robot?
No, not yet.
Is that Thursday?
Thursday next week will be the first, not first introduction, but, first time I can properly say, go up to it and have this training and then be competent to do it myself. But I've had UR training, so I've seen the polyscope. I can know the movements and the safety side of it. But the welding side is, that's an EWM UR cap made with Smooth Robotics.
Right.
So that Smooth Robotics are coming to train us.
Right. So what's the arm that you're using? Because I thought
UR. But we've also got a system with a fan hook on as well.
So that's the one I want to look at, because that's the one that I really want to work with. So not the UR one as such, because I know there's loads of people doing the UR.
Yeah.
Because is it going to be called the XQ bot?
XQ bot, yeah.
And that's going to be a cell.
Yeah.
And you can either have it with a door at the front where you load it,
yeah,
or you can have it with a rotating turntable, which you do by hand, but you lock it in. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I think that's so good is, so many clients, I think the BAE situations that you're talking about is quite unique, that you've got loads of young lads in your age that all look like Geordie Shore lads, like you and Johnny. You're not all as ugly and rough nut as us Yorkshire lads. But a lot of clients that come to me with that inspiration and idea of a robot ultimately all say, well, we just can't get staff. There's no young lads coming through anymore. The one where you can just load it into a cell and spend the time programming it and be fully compliant, it turns up and you just load it into your client. That's where I really think we need to be.
You still need a sort of, a welding knowledge though as well, don't you?
Yes.
And this is the thing, people are like, I mean, if you want, like on the podcast we'll say that, but people, is there going to be welding jobs in the future? They were generally worried about the cobot situation, saying, well, is this going to take over the jobs? And I was like, well, no, because
Can't do.
Cobot stands for collaborative robot. It's made to work with humans.
Yeah.
Without the human, the robot will just freaking sit there.
You need to be able to program it, and you need to know how to lay a weld.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big misconception. So if you're John from stores and all you've ever done is taking your DHL deliveries every day and put them into part boxes, and then they expect you from the office to just walk up to that cobot after half a day's worth of training and start welding components, they're wrong.
100%. There's people that are very good at programming robots, and there's people who are very good at welding. There's very few people who can do both.
Put it together.
Yeah.
To understand.
If you can do both, you're very valuable to the business, really.
There's a company that I deal with, and they've got Cluse robots. But it took quite a while to get them because of that level of, right, we're going to train this person up and he's going to run it. But he might have still been an apprentice at that point. So his welding knowledge was only quite basic. So potentially might not have been welding procedures to work to. And at least that's a start if you know you're going to be welding to a welding procedure. But in a lot of cases, you can't always apply that to a robot situation anyway. Because a lot of it's, can we even get it welding in the first place?
Yeah.
And I think that'd be my knowledge of the EWM stuff, because I'm sure would the XQ bot come with a Titan in reality?
You should be able to have it with any machine, basically, any XQ.
There'd be no reason not to put a Titan on it though, would there? So you could do everything.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, if you're doing, is it for is that for you speccing it to a customer, or is that for?
I just think in general, giving people a really good broad understanding of this is what robots can do. But I think
you're not limiting yourself, and if you go Titan, like you say, you can have all the processes, and it'll open you up to future future jobs, you know.
I think people scared about jobs through automation. A lot of automation situations that me and my dad got involved in. My dad did one of his first ever really big multi-scale automation jobs was for a company that were just in Morley called FTL, and they made the convoluted gas tube for your gas meter. Mm-hmm. So when your gas meter comes into house, it's just got 2 sockets and a bit of flexible stainless hose. Mm-hmm. And initially, before they even semi-automated that process, that were ladies in welding bays, and it wasn't just like any old lady, so it was like a family in 3 generations. So there were grandma, mother, daughter, all in, and they all worked for the company, and they all TIG welded them by hand. Let's say they started to automate in the 90s. They were already quite late to it because a lot of people had already started to semi-automate stuff by that point. Mm-hmm. But what that did is that grandma didn't want to be TIG welding 500 flexible tube ends a day. She was probably ready for retiring. Yeah. And what used to happen is they used to say, "Don't retire yet." And people didn't retire, and they were still welding. So these automation systems were really simple, welded at 90 amps. You could put a Cibora bi-welder TIG DCHF on there, and it just welded at 90 amps. It did 1 rotation, a bit of an overlap, and that were it. Mm-hmm. Those ladies' jobs then, old Maggie don't want to be welding at 90 years old, does she? But she was quite happy loading. So she became a loader. But I think in the concept of how technical a weld can you do on a robot, it's okay setting 2 bits of pipe up and making it look immaculate and amazing with a perfect prep and a perfect environment and getting that perfect. And that's okay, but that's still a job for a pipe welder because he's welded it before you've set your robot up.
I think everyone thinks that if the prep's no good, the robot ain't going to be able to do anything about that. If you start with a bad prep, you're wasting your money with a robot.
You could put an £100,000 camera on the robot, but it's not going to see when it's not burning through the back.
And we've had a lot of, well, not a lot, but quite a few customers with complaining about the sort of setup, and we look at it and just say, look at the prep. There's a 2 mil gap there and a 4 mil gap there, so the robot ain't going to be able to know that. And this is what. That's one of them. You think sometimes people think it's a magic wand, don't they? Like a standard torch. People think the machine's a magic, and the torch is a magic wand. But
I think it's funny when you go to a client. I know when we started selling Alpha Q machines, a lot of people said it's taking the finesse and the expertise away from welding, and that definitely wasn't the case. It was you had to apply your knowledge in a different manner. It weren't a case of just turning 2 switches up until you got a voltage you liked and trying to match your wire speed.
Or you go to where the tip X marks were on the machine.
Tip X marks or the yellow marks. And there's still quite a lot of bit of that now. But I think moving forward, people were really scared of a synergic curve. Well, I'm not using it in synergic.
People still are.
I find that.
Yeah. Still, people ring me up and say, "Can I take it out of synergic?" And just go on to job 188. But why?
But why would you want to do that?
That's the way I've always done it, So, look, it's there if they want to use it, but I was like, you just bought a machine.
14 grand machine, list price.
You want to just work off amps and volts, or wire feed speed and volts, but, if that's what they're used to, then...
I think there's so much advantage, though, isn't there, of putting a machine in 4-star and pulse and being able to really manipulate your weld through an entire range of weld without getting it so it's really spattery and erratic or settings aren't right. And I think in a lot of cases, when you go to a machine and the welder's frustrated, it doesn't matter how good your welding machine is because he's going to say it's shit. That fucking machine is shit. And that's what you're going to get.
It's always a machine's fault.
It's always a machine fault. But he's probably forgotten all his training he had. Do you sell a lot of machines for the cold arc process anymore? Or has that seemed to taper off a little bit?
It's application dependent, though, isn't it? So,
I agree.
It's still out there, but it's not like you're doing one every day or every week. But
I think the place where I think cold arc comes into its own is when you think about doing stainless steel. So the stainless steel synergic curves, I think, are second to none. So everybody else's stainless steel synergic curves that I've used in industry, I still personally think that EWM's curves are best. And if you put it in cold arc, on some thin stainless and you put it in cold arc and pulse to get more arc pressure. In a lot of cases, you can do extremely good seam welds on 2 and 3 mil stainless, you know, and achieve really, really good welds, but double the speed of TIG. And it might not be a TIG essential process.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like it's what they've been doing in the past, and as to what
they've spent all the money on the welding procedures for.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what did you sell into BAE? What went in there? So you sold, well, that a bespoke Titan in a way?
No, there's no Titan in there. It's only they just do flux cord. So
flux cord.
Yeah. It's just Taurus basic.
And I always like to talk about Taurus to people because people say Taurus, and I say that's entry level of the inverter range, but Taurus means bull in Spanish. It's an absolute bull of a machine.
Yeah. It's meant to be battered and
hammered.
Yeah, and they do get hammered. But yeah, they just wanted something very basic. Anything that that was on there that they didn't need was taken off.
Really?
Yeah. Like that's the thing with our sort of SEO department, and this is why it's so easy to work for EWM in terms of support. Like everything I've sort of requested, it's never been a hassle.
It's always been done.
Yeah, and like that's what I don't know what other manufacturers are like, but that's why we do so well with big companies, because we can tailor make things to. And SEOs might come from something as small as they wanted, because I was saying earlier that they've got 100 meters of harness, so they're saying, could you make us a little test rig, which basically we'll put all the harnesses together, because if you've got a faulty harness, you've got to take them all back out. So they asked if they could make a pocket-sized test rig with EWM on it,
right,
and LEDs, which would do your voltage and your data signals. Brilliant. So I sent it to Germany, and they went, yeah, how many do they want? And ended up buying like 100 or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was about that big, like pocket size, because it was developed to go into the lads' overalls, and when they went in the boat, it was just something like that. I don't know if you get that from anywhere else.
I think there's other manufacturers and there's other welding kind of manufacturers in the market, and they want to keep as much to themselves as possible. They want to try and do it all themselves, and they want to keep everything secret. But that doesn't enable really good working relationships like we've got with EWM.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be good if I got all my service bulletins sent?
I'll forward you them if
After you leave today, I'm going to be ripping workshop apart. Probably won't go on till midnight. I'll be looking for that dongle. It's got to be here somewhere.
It's like a needle in a haystack, though, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm Saturday night, I was like, I think I had some sausages on way here at like 2:00 in the afternoon. It was like 8:30, and I was starting to go through every single component box in workshop. My dad wore every fucking name under the sun. I was like, you fucking bastard. This has got to be somewhere. And so it is incredibly like a needle in an haystack.
Even at our place, I'll set up all of our stuff. So I'll lay out all of the stuff I need, and I'll put it in the same drawer, and I'm like, right. And then 2 weeks later, you'll lose it because you've started putting other stuff in that drawer and moving it, and that's just me with a desk, for you in here. I would have loved to see you trying to find something in here.
I went upstairs on Saturday. I think I just went upstairs to the toilet, and I thought, I'm going to have a look in here. There might be something in there. And I never knew I had that. And then, fucking hell, I've got one of them. I needed that last week.
That's what you do. And then you spend so much time looking at something that you didn't even originally looking for, but you're like, I can use this for that.
Yeah.
And then you're thinking, the fuck was I actually looking for in the first place?
Well, it's funny because when we went upstairs to find the cable that I came down with, I found loads of fronts for wire feed units so we can put the membranes back on the EWM wire feed units.
Yeah, I do that every sort of stock take. I find stuff and I spend this is why our stock takes so long, because I was sat looking, I'm like, oh God, remember this? And I was looking at that. I'll definitely use that. And then it's still there the next stock. Yeah. I'm like, right, I was going to use that, but then you're desperate for a job to come in to use it.
It's not just me and my dad then.
No, it's definitely me as well. Like I say, now obviously with us going into sales more now anyway, I don't obsess so much about those little parts that I want to use. But, if my new service engineer does use them, I'll be the first one there helping them put it on, because like I was saying earlier, if I know if there's something in my brain, I can't go to sleep until I do it.
Yeah. Well, my dad was saying, my dad used to, when we all lived at home when I was a kid, if my dad had a problem, you'd hear him go sit on the toilet in the middle of the night. And I mean, like in middle of the night. So you'd be laid in bed and you'd see light come on at landing and you'd pop your head out. And my dad would be just sat there on the toilet, butt naked, just sat there. And, you all right, Dad? And he'd be just like, yeah. And then sometimes you'd find him in bath and he'd have been in bath for 4 hours. Yeah. And he'd filled it up 3 times, emptied immersion heater. And you all right, Dad? And he'd be, yeah, I'm just thinking about something. And he'd either be pondering an automation job or he'd be pondering a problem. But it's like Oliver said the other day, he said, you're a bit different to Grandad. You just absolutely either go ballistic and smash everything up, or he said, I just can't talk to you. He said, it's just like...
I'm exactly the same.
He said, you're like completely vacant. He said, I look at you and I'm like, you're right, Dad. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, your mind's not there. Like, you're there, like, in body and all that, but my lass is exactly the same with me. When she walks in, and she just has to look at me, and she's like, he said, nah, like...
I'll just leave you to it.
Yeah, I don't know, like, I don't know if you get that when I go to bed sometimes, that's when all my mind starts to unravel everything. So I'm going off at a tangent, and then I can, like, draw things in my mind, which is like, it's like a family tree just splitting down, but it's just shit. It's like... stuff I don't even need to think about, but I obsess about it for about an hour, and then I look at the clock, it's 2:00 in the morning, and then...
I think Dad's been gone 8 months, and I think I was really busy trying to just keep a hold of my shit before he passed away. But then he passed away, and it's just that situation, like, very similar, but I've had nights where I've not been to bed. I've stayed up all night, and I've gone to bed, and I've tried to sleep, and it's just absolutely just chipped.
This is the Weld Like Bazza podcast.
So I was really drilling pipe solution 10 years ago. And then this young guy, about 23, started using pipe solution on this open route, and I went, isn't it good that you can weld with it like an MMA rod, but in MIG, and you can have an extended stick out, and it's still really fierce, and it's punching through, and I love it. And then I can put pulse on and do my second pass, and I'm like, I was trying to do this 10 years ago when you were like 14 years old.
It baffles me, like the stuff, the processes and all that are there to make it
easier.
Like, easier, yeah. I was like, I don't do loads of the welding side. Obviously, Johnny does a lot of that, but it was just one day I said, Johnny, set us up a Titan and put us on cold arc and put us on root arc. And I hadn't welded like for ages. Right. And the first time I was like, this is so easy. And he's like, no, he says that the stability of the arc was just... And like, I'd been there, this was only probably last year, where I've been at EWM for 8 years, and I'm thinking, like, why do people not use it when they've got it available?
Why do people struggle?
Yeah. Like I say, when I used it, both the processes, so you know, setting up the wire, and then you've got the process selection in the top left. And I just said to Johnny, just set us up and tell us what to do, and I'll do it. So it came downhand on the cold arc with a gap, big gold gap at the bottom as well. Yeah. And I like, Johnny had set it up, and I was like, I ain't gonna be able to do that. And it just flew across. And then root arc went vertical up again. It's just lovely to use.
So do you use root arc on a vertical up position normally for a little bit more arc pressure?
Yeah.
But you don't have to weave as such, you just go straight up.
Yeah, it was just, like I said, it was quite a gap on that as well, to be fair, though. I can't remember exactly what it was now, but it was just, for me, I think from transitioning from service engineer to sales guy, obviously knowing the processes even more, then I make it sort of my business, like I was saying earlier about setting a Pico MIG 225 up, and I was like, wow. I went up
amazing machine.
Yeah, I went up and sat with Alan, I was like, and me and Alan was like, he says, like, that's the best thing about just setting them up and having a bit of play with it and understand. And someone rang us up actually and asked, and they wanted to do some aluminium work with it, and he said, could it do it? And I says, look, I'll ring you back in an hour. And I set it up myself, and I just did it. And I rang the customer, I says, no problem.
No problem at all.
Yeah, no problem.
Because until that point, it was either a 180 or a 300 for the pulse.
Yeah.
But the 180 just didn't have enough balls in it to be able to pulse the bigger diameter wires.
Yeah.
So a 225, and now the fact that it's so efficient, Because that's something EWM's always been great at, even when it came into UK as a Messer, as a blue machine. And I'm going to show you one. I found one on the bench the other day where the controls are in the side panel. As a Messer. And the good thing about them is incredibly efficient. The power factor correction. I know a lot of people rave about this. You can read any manufacturer's statements now and look at a brochure. Power factor connection, wide voltage usage. EWM were always incredibly efficient.
Everyone thinks that power factor correction is new. It's not. It's been around since the 60s, I think.
Been about since like 1958.
Yeah. It's just that it's been sort of condensed and now being able to be used in welding machines.
It's used as a marketing tool in the welding industry.
Well, I've seen other manufacturers actually put PFC on the end of it.
There's some European manufacturers that are really good at shouting about that.
Yeah, I don't think we particularly advertise it in the name or anything like that.
You don't need to, do you? You just need to say we're incredibly efficient.
Yeah.
And I think the misunderstanding of power factor correction is it just makes your efficiency so good for what you're putting in to what you're getting out.
Well, you see that with the extra pulse jobs on those 225. If you look on the job list, and if it's white, it's a standard job. If it's blue, nearly 90% of them are all available in pulse now.
In pulse.
And that's all
on a single phase machine.
Yeah. That Pico Mig, I quickly just ran it off a 13 amp plug and it flew through it.
We use a little caravan adapter, 13 amp plug, blue 16 amp socket.
Yeah.
Put your 16 amp plug on your machine, plug it in, and you just run it off 13 amp plug, because a lot of people might only have 13 amp supply available until they can get a 16 amp supply put in. Mm-hmm. And all that's going to give you is being able to knock hell out of the top end of it anyway, because at 13 amps, you can get them up to nearly 200 amps in MIG.
Yeah.
And it's not going to blow the fuse. It's just under the 13 amps.
Yeah. That's it. It'll be a very popular machine, that.
I think it needs selling the back end of does that 225 and the 220.
Yeah, that's what I'm pretty much doing now. Is I've got them in the boot of the car, and you go out and you show people it, and they're just amazed by it. So
Dad was in hospital and a client phoned, and at that point, I think you'd only just really started talking to me regarding the sales side. We'd spoke forever about lack service, but Callum, I've got this fucking problem, right? I'm telling you, it's all right. I'll speak to Germany. I'm like, fucking, I'm telling you, I've fucking seen it.
Yeah.
And I remember speaking to you. He said, we do the one that takes 15 kilogram spool, the 225.
Yeah.
So for me, for a machine that's got pulse, incredibly stable arc, runs off a 13 amp plug, 16 amp preferably, and takes a 15 kilogram spool, you're happy to pay that little bit extra for it.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah.
I sold the one without pulse, just the standard. The client didn't want pulse. He's just doing like end plates to H and I beams. He just wants to do it in one pass, and it looked really good. He's put 1 mil wire on it, and he's just pulling trigger, running it off a really crappy farm supply. Said it's best machine he's ever used.
So easy to use as well. Like the panel is just so clean, and it's not overcomplicated.
I try to use this quite a lot. If you look at a 1990s EWM machine and you look at a Titan, you can still use both machines and pretty much everything in between, because EWM's never really changed the ethos of how to navigate that system.
It's just old saying, if it's not broken, don't.
You're not quite old enough yet to
I'm getting there, but I'm definitely getting there. I feel old.
But I think that's something that's really good, and I think these manufacturers that change it all the time. Even though on the expert panel, on the XQs, it still navigates through the same way as you would on a HP panel, on the Comfort 3.0, 2.0.
The Expert 3.0 is got to be on the Titans.
Is it?
Yeah, it was. We had it on the stand in Essen.
Right.
So that'll be, I don't know, I think early this year. I think they're bringing that out. So, but the good thing is, it's such a nice panel, but it's sort of going to be, if you've got TIG sets and you've got MIG sets with those expert panels on, where there is quite a big difference now in terms of a Titan panel to a Tetrix panel. They're going to look exactly the same. Good. And you can simplify it. Like, people look at it and say it's too complicated. I'm like, all right, well, watch this, and I'll do you not want that on? Take it off, and it shortens the menu, like the panel down, and you're only looking at the parameters that you need. And that's been a big benefit for that.
That's a very good idea.
Yeah, that's been one of the best things that we've brought out, because there's such, with any machine, people are saying it's overcomplicated. And it's like, yeah, but you haven't had any training on it. As soon as you speak to them after 15, 20 minutes, they're like, so it's not that bad. But if you can go in and say, right, well, we'll just change this to make it simple for you straight away, it just shortens that time period down for them to get using the machine, really. Because
a lot of the people that we're trying to educate with new gear is stuck in a way of using some.
Well, they've been through such a transitional period now where, from when I first started to having, and now you're getting rid of that step switch. They're having to jump from something which has been very simple, your Tipex marks on your sweet spot, to now an expert panel. I can see it is probably daunting to people, but we're in a different generation now where everyone's got smartphones, and, weld machines are going to sort of like look at that, because that's what humans relate to now anyway.
And that's a way where we're going to get young guys back in.
Yeah. Well, that's why, with cobots and all that, with the pendants and they look like tablets now. They look like iPads, essentially. And that's why, we were talking about this a while ago, about the average age for welders, nearly like 58 now, I think. So there's going to be that next generation that have to come through, and this one now is, up to date with your smartphones, your tablets and all that. And that's what I think is obviously very clever in the way that weld machines, they're going to look similar, but they have that sort of operating system which is easy to use.
Well, we've been involved with EWM since before Morpeth opened.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as an engineer, I've ripped sides off a lot of machines which were like 80s and 90s machines, and seen EWM components in other people's machines. A lot of people are completely unaware of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because EWM used to make components for other people's welding machines, didn't they, for a long time? Because did the company start in the 50s?
Yeah, it was the 50s, 50... I can't remember. I'll get crucified for not knowing the exact birth of the company, but it was the 50s. I've got a timeline in the actual showroom which shows, the first generation of the Chesney family which actually started it.
Yeah.
And,
I've never had the privilege of meeting them.
No, they're brilliant. Like say, the family... They're still very much involved, but and Michael Chesney, he's like the sort of the brains of it all.
Yes.
And everything that I've sent emails direct to him asking about stuff, and he's like come back so helpful and said, like, this is what you need.
Amazing.
I know some of the stuff I spoke about before about software and SEO stuff.
Yes.
I've just sent it to him a little bit. I don't know, like, should I just send it and just chance it? And he's just came back straight away and said, yeah, this is what you need to do. This is the colleague who will help you with it.
Yeah.
It's very easy to work with.
And I think I still go back to Rudiger.
Yeah.
Potentially being one of my dad were super intelligent, just on a different level of, like, a little, I don't know, he'd just look at you and it'd be like, I know what it is.
Mm.
And then Rudiger was, first time, my dad used to speak about Rudiger, about some in-depth conversations that they'd had. So this must have been in the 80s.
I would love to have been a fly on the wall when Rudiger and your dad were speaking to each other.
So
the phone bill must have been astronomical.
Astronomical. And my dad used to be like, I love the fact, because my dad were one of the first ever Murex, City and Guilds grade 3 engineers qualified in the UK in the 80s, one of the very first. He's super proud of it. And that is, although my dad's not here, you sat actually right next to his ashes, so you can give him a pat on. But no, that's staying up walled. I'm super proud of it. And he used to say, he said, I love speaking with Rudy. And he never called him Rudy. He said he'd tell you, like, in very slow English, exactly what component, and this was still through old technology, very basic microprocessor, and he'd be like, if this goes, Malcolm, it's because of this. And my dad said I learnt so much from him. And then I met him when George was the engineer at EWM. Rudy came over and he pulled me, like, on the night time. I think we were there for 3 days. He went,
oh, that was right. We had like a... because it's you, Rudy, and Jan, the younger lad.
Yeah.
We all went for a beer after and all that.
We did. Well, he kind of he was like looking at me really funny, what Rudy, and I thought I've upset him. And he pulled me and went, like, you've asked really crazy questions like that nobody else has asked. And he said, you want to know why that droplet's that size? And I'm like, yeah, I do. And he looked at me and said, I like it. And we hit it off. And he was just like, he used to tell me about, he'd get shouted at for wearing his Converse in workshop in Germany. Yeah. and then he'd be like, I've blown a main board up and a secondary inverter board on a machine. And everybody would be going, how come you've done that? He said, I need to know what's blown it up. I need to know what's going to cause these faults. Kind of like a nutty
professor in a way, wasn't he?
Absolutely amazing.
He was brilliant. I learned a lot from Rudiger in the early days of EWM as well.
Just one of the top guys. Him and my dad. You're like, yeah, just
the first machine that when I first started speaking to Rudiger we had a company that used a lot of Triton 400s.
Right. Okay.
And Rudiger, that was basically what George was still there, but he was sort of doing like
they were red and black at that time.
Yeah. George was sort of like doing half days, so he said, look, if I'm not here, speak to Rudiger, and you could pick the phone up and he would tell you like I say, I can only imagine what him and your dad must have talked about, but
it was nuts.
But like even the guys now in the service department, like Florian and Michael, they've been there. You know, I think Florian came through the apprenticeship scheme, which a lot of them do.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that you find with EWM in Germany. A lot of them, if you go on like our intranet, it's a lot of them celebrating the 25th anniversary of working, or 35, 40 years, some of them.
Yeah.
Seems to be a company that everyone goes into and just stays at, you know?
Yeah.
So obviously doing something right. And
I agree. If you got people coming in at that level, not wanting to move on, you know, Alan's been there forever in the UK, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Paul joined Alan. Paul's been there forever.
Paul's been there about 14, 15 years probably now, I think.
Really? That long?
Yeah, I've been there. There's 10 years for me this year.
And you came from a mechanical background to start?
I worked for John Deere.
So, that's right. Yeah. Alan poached you. There's another Geordie Shore boy for my calendar.
I don't know how I was thinking about it the other day, how I even got into it, because like I say,
he poached you, didn't he?
Well, there was like, I think it was like an agency. I was doing, like for John Deere, I was doing a lot more, it was mechanical hydraulics.
Yeah, because you'd never seen an oscilloscope at that point, had you?
No, I don't know. I went to college and all that and did my electronic stuff, but then going into work, it was all 12-volt systems.
Yeah.
And on that sort of stuff, it was always hydrostatic transmissions, engines, the electric side of it. So when I came into this, I was like, shit.
What have I done?
I did. I thought.
Have you found any dead rats?
I was not in the EWM world, but in the John Deere world, there was a lot. Well, you're thinking farm equipment, or there was a lot of golf course stuff, and you'd have to clean all the machines out, and you'd find half of the rat in one side of the machine because it's been thrown up. And so I was laughing when you were talking about that yesterday.
I used to also put a rubber chicken in my toolbox as well. It's like just for piss take, like because I spent so many hours on road on my own. I used to have this rubber chicken, and then when I got really pissed off, I'd sit at the side of my machine, and if somebody were in a welding bay looking over my shoulder, really pissing me off, I'd just start having a conversation with this rubber chicken, and you'd be amazed at how quickly they fucked off.
Yeah.
And then I'd wrap it back up and put my rubber chicken back in my toolbox. I'd just think, yeah, that worked. and I forgot about that. That's a belter. Is that one? I've done, yeah. Yeah, I spent too many hours.
Yesterday when you talked about, when you were cutting away that bench to get into that machine, I was just sitting there laughing away because I've been in certain situations like that, but I just think now I fucking just put my stuff in the van and drove away because I couldn't have done that. Like
9-inch grinder, 2 boxes of discs.
Nah.
And that bloke's like, are you going to weld it up after? I'm like, I'm not going to fucking weld it up, no.
I remember when I was at John Deere, I had the option of working outside in the rain or working in the shed, which was flooded. So I was going to get wet either way. So you'd be working underneath track or whatever, and you'd be putting cardboard down, but it would just slowly be saturating into the puddles.
And for anybody who's thinking about coming into welding industry, it's not always like that.
I remember the water just going down the back of the overalls and you have that, you said it yesterday or Sunday whenever you did the podcast, the first episode, saying you go back and you question, why the fuck am I doing this?
Why the fuck am I doing this?
I did that quite often. But, I think when I joined EWM, the thing with John Deere, we did every machine. When I'm doing EWM, we only have EWMs in.
Yes.
So, and that's why I only wanted to leave John Deere to go to another. John Deere's the high end.
Yep, the best.
The best, without a doubt. And I didn't want to leave. I was a bit reluctant to leave anyway, but there was another situation. But I was like, if I'm leaving, I'm going to the best of another. And if it would be the same thing if I ever left EWM, I probably couldn't go and work for anyone else.
No.
Because of getting to that point of, machines inside and out, all the layouts of them. I just think, I'm very biased, obviously, but ours is just, when you take the sides off, the layout of it now, and I think it made it very easy for me to learn.
Yes.
Because the service manuals are really good. And
I don't even think I've got a service manual yet for my Titan.
I'm sure I sent you it.
You might have done.
I'm sure I've sent you one.
I'll have a look.
I've never had to use one yet.
There's, I had a particular client on a very, very, very early batch. He had a couple of pumps go, which I don't think that was an EWM problem at all, but EWM were like, send you some new pumps. I don't think it was even a warranty job, really. I think it might have just been a pump failure.
Like I found, in 10 years, when I very first joined, we had the only time that we've had a sort of, not a recall, but a big thing where I was saying, look, we found this, but the way that they deal with it is
unprecedented.
It's not like a big stress about it. It's like, right, we found this is the solution. And it's like just handled. It's not not dragged out. Hypertherm
are exactly the same. I used to go out to Rosendale quite a lot when I was out there. That's how I became really good friends with David Peake.
I know Dave Peake. Well, I've never met him, but I speak to him on through emails. So he's very good.
Again, just the oracle of knowledge. Came up working for an OEM. He told some amazing stories, actually. Like, there's some amazing stories. I think there was one being in a nightclub in India. That's an amazing story. I can't
imagine a nightclub in India.
I've had some great times with him, and they once put me up in an hotel, and they laughed in the morning when I got up because they put me in the room right opposite the church, the town hall church bell. So it was chiming every 15 minutes, and they pissed themselves when I walked out. Or like, I need a new room, and they all laughed at me for that. But no, David, incredibly intelligent guy, and willing to kind of learn from new people that go in as well. Go, actually, Barry, that's a really good way that you've done that. How come? And he always questions, why do you do it that way and not this way? Because I'm normally knee deep in shit, no 4G, no internet, no service manual.
Yeah.
I've been told wrong story before I get to site. That happens less and less now, but in early days, my dad would send me out to fix a plasma, and I'd be turning up to a Lincoln FCR 650, and it'd be something completely different.
Yeah.
Or I'd be getting sent out to a Lincoln FCR 650, it'd be a Lincoln Bullet. Interpols had dropped and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So many different times I said today, I've just got to sit there and reverse engineer that machine in my head as quickly as humanly possible. And David's like, what do you? I said, I've just got to sit there, Dave, and go, right, I know how this needs to work. And a lot of it is hijack. So you've got to simulate the fault, work out why it's doing it. And a lot of it is proving it to yourself as an engineer.
Yeah.
And it's been installed in me with my dad. So again, back to hypertherm, it's just like, if there is a problem, I think it sometimes falls under the radar, doesn't it? If it's such a small percentage and they're selling 10 billion machines, it's not going to really get picked up on. But if you're seeing that very small percentage all in one go, you're going to think, oh, there's quite a big problem. When ultimately there's not. You speak to Hypertherm, they're like, yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
And, again, service bulletins probably don't get sent out to me, but somebody will get them somewhere.
Yeah. It's one of them. I always think it's how they deal with the situations. If there is, everyone has problems, but I think,
don't pretend it doesn't happen.
No, exactly. Like,
just deal with it.
Yeah, the electrical components. There's, things happen, but like I say, it's how you respond to it. Like with me being in the service side for so long, I'm sort of made it my business to have. I was probably overcautious with spare parts, but one of the first things I show potential new clients or sales partners is the spare parts range we keep, because they need to know if that goes down for whatever reason,
we've got it.
Yeah, we've got it, and we'll get it back up, and that's it.
I think it's funny how all the conversations we have is always normally about a completely obscure fault that's never been seen before, and then you go, fucking hell, I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
I know, and like this is what it is. It's got to be this. But then the backup from Germany, you put that forward to them. Yeah, actually, completely right. This can cause that problem, and that's why, we've never seen it before, but we've done the research, and we can categorically say, yeah, change that board or that component. And I think rather than just get an email saying you need to change that and it's that price.
Yeah.
The price never comes into it because the service has been so amazing in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
And the reliability. We've got Alpha Qs that have been out 10, 12 years. They're looking a bit dated now, but that's only due to design. Everything was square back then.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, I remember when I first joined, they had the big A on the side of the machine or the big P for if it was Alpha or Phoenix, or they had big S or for Saturn. And that was the only way when I first joined, it was how I really identified what machine it was.
Right.
And then obviously I got to know it a lot more, but then the XQ range completely changed everything, where, it's all this nice, slim, sleek design for production purposes and everything. It's sort of like all the XQs now look the same in a way, you know what I mean? You have to go up there and have a look, but it's so much.
Yeah, I've done that. I've fallen over a Titan thinking it were a Phoenix, and other way around.
Yeah. It's a lot easier for me again referring back to the service side. You don't have to hold a million different spare parts.
Yeah,
all your casings are the same. It's quite rare that people, well, for me anyway, I find it's quite rare people damage the actual power source side of it.
Did you see that email that I sent you where I'd just sold a Phoenix 400 XQ, 2 weeks old, and they dropped a great big piece of steel straight through the front of it?
No, I don't think
I checked the emails the other day, and me and you were like, right, I'm going to need this. I'm going to need these.
Yes,
and I'm just like, how's that happened? Brand new, 10, 12 grand machine.
Yeah.
Anyway, they only picked parts up for it the other day. Oh yeah, well, he's still working. I'm like, well, your warranty's void.
I remember that actually. You sent us a couple of photos, didn't you?
Oh, battered. And we spoke to German. They were like, Barry, you're gonna have to rebuild the case if you change that front panel.
I think when you asked me for the parts, I didn't even have the parts list. It was part of the production parts list, so they would never. They probably would have had to take that off a machine on the production
We can do it, Barry, but he's going to spend a week to
you'll
change
have to take the whole front end off, but it's madness.
But I think that's what's good about the Titan range. And you look at other people's welding machines of the same amperage, of a similar technology value, and they're half the size, and you open an EWM machine up and it's still double the size of everybody else's and still ram-packed with technology. And it's not that they're using oversized, cheap technology. They're still using... It's full. It's full of good gear.
Yeah.
And they've slimmed them down. The tank's a little bit smaller now in the Titans for the water cooling. It were bigger than the diesel tank on my van, the one in the Alpha Qs.
Yeah, they were massive, weren't they? I think that's why, when people talk about a price point on machines and all that, but if you take the sides off, you can see the level of, the components that they're at. And you can see that they're not cheap components. You
can tell it's the best. And when you look, I am that anal, I have scrutinised boards. The first one that came in, I think it was a week late to the client because I had every single board out of the machine. And my dad were like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
And I'm like...
I remember your dad ringing us up and saying, we need one of these Titans. And I says, all right. He says, Barry wants to pull it apart. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
But that's how you get to learn the machine. And
I need, without a manual, I need to know how I'm going to get to that part, how I'm going to get to this, what that does, how it's been interfaced.
Yeah.
And also, I want to know what the ethos is. Is it still EWM? And that's what sold it to me. Took panels off, and it's still EWM. Yeah, it looks sexy, but it's still EWM. And the price point thing's really important that you mentioned. It's all in. All your synergic curves are there. Everything's there. You don't, and I'm very familiar with the synergic curves. A client phoned up 6 months ago. I want to use this particular wire. This synergic curve doesn't exist, and I want to use this gas, right? A couple of emails backwards and forwards, and the new guys were saying it needs to be 3-part or 4-part gas. The customer only wanted to use the 2.5% CO2. I said, right, I'll tell you how we're going to do it. Client number B. We're going to do it by putting the wire on, and you're going to use this synergic curve on this gas, but you're going to have to tweak it this way, and you're going to have to change your dynamic a little bit, and you're going to have to, but it's going to weld. I'm like, are you sure? And I'm like, 99% sure.
Yeah.
Have you done it before? No, but I've sat up all night, like you said, and I've thought about it, and I can kind of remember the synergic curve on that machine. It were red and black. It weren't even like the old Phoenix or Alpha Q range. And we got it right. And he went, it's past the welding procedures. It's brilliant. And that's my confidence level in the product that makes me so unique. Yeah, I am single, but there's a reason for it. Yeah, there's a fucking reason for that.
Probably because you're sat in here at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night.
20 past. My mum said it was 20 past 10 when you left. So I think I'll bring it to a close, mate, but it's been a pleasure to have you and record you. It's been good.
No, thanks for having us, mate.
Really, are you coming back on in a month? When are you back up?
Well,
6 weeks.
Yeah.
And then you'd have had your training on the robot.
You are robot, yeah.
You are robot. But
there's that many things now, isn't there? XQ,
there is.
You are...
I tell you what will be really good, I think, if I can come and spend a full day at Mac with you.
Yeah.
On the stand this year.
I think we'll have that cell, so I think we're putting the smaller one on.
Yes.
Just for, for the layout.
It'd be too big to do the...
I don't know exactly how big the stand is, but I just think, obviously, for shipping and all that, it's essentially, it's going to be the same robot, same power source, and, you'll
So we're going to be at Mac, you and Johnny will be there, Alan will be there.
Yeah, so we've got a meeting on Thursday afternoon to sort of discuss personnel, and because ideally you're going to want me there for probably a couple of days, and then I'll probably swap with another sales guy for a couple of days, and they bring their customers. I think Martin from Germany's coming over.
Brilliant.
I don't know if you've met Martin.
Yeah.
Martin Weber's coming.
What a welder! I did all the COVID training with him, like because through COVID he did all his video seminars. Yeah. And that's like Alan would be picking his nose on the live chat in the morning, and I'd be texting Alan a message saying, "I can see you picking your nose." We're like, "God, I forgot I were live on." And so I did all that, and because he did all the different kind of. He did one based on 4-Stark and stuff like that, didn't he?
There's a good one on Cobots on there as well.
Right, okay.
It might be on YouTube, but I seen it on LinkedIn about 4 or 5 weeks ago. I reposted it on LinkedIn, and it's just showing you how sort of easy it was to use that on there. So
so if anybody wants to find like us, I'm MS Welding obviously, but like EWM is pretty much straight through the middle of us. But you post all your videos to LinkedIn. YouTube channel doesn't seem to be as busy as it used to be.
I don't know if they're changing. Like I say, the YouTube channel they did quite a lot. But then I don't know if I don't know if you've met Stanny. He's like the guy for XNet. He seems to be our new Leonardo DiCaprio of EWM.
Yeah, he is.
And I actually, when we were in Essen, Stanny was on the.
He's another good-looking fucker, isn't he?
He's just like he's one of the lads as well. He's the same age as me and Johnny pretty much, and when he comes over, he's just got that sense of humour.
Yeah.
But he was all dressed up. I don't know if you've seen the videos on LinkedIn where he's got all his PPE and he comes out of a manhole cover with a Pico TIG.
Yeah.
Well, he had all that gear on at Essen, and I'm thinking, all right, but he's at the XQ bot cell, and he was like looking at the pendant, and I had 3 customers with us. I can't remember. There was a sales partner with me, and I says, "Oh, Stanley's over there. I'll get him to show you." So I walked over and I nudged him. I said, "Stanley, can you show these customers this? They're really interested." And he blanked us, and I was like. So I pushed him and I said, "Hey, asshole." And he just said out the corner of his mouth, "I'm fucking filming." And I looked over and there was a camera crew on him. They were actually recording, Stanley pretending to go through the panel. And I looked and I was like, "Oh shit, sorry guys." And everyone just erupted in laughter. But so, yeah, there's loads he does a lot of it.
Cool.
Like all the Pico TIGs. He's done a lot with Cobots.
I think if you have that meeting with Alan and then sort out what day we can have an overlap, and I'll come down and spend a full day. I'll put my EWM overalls on.
Yeah.
My hat, my woolly hat that you brought me this morning.
Oh yeah.
I needed that this morning. It was 2 degrees.
I don't know. I remember last time I was here, you had a bit of a bubble one on. I was like, I need to get you a branded one.
I think Oliver nicked that one. But no, that's really good. So we'll sort an overlap out, and then I can come and say hello to everybody. It'd be really cool.
Yeah, Mac. Was April. Yeah, 3rd or 4th week of April.
It was still really good.
I can't remember.
That's Birmingham Mac, isn't it?
Birmingham NEC. We did it years and years ago. It's just manic.
Cool.
It's all right when you go to Essen because you just turn up and everyone else has done all the graft, but when it's you, it's like
you've got to do it all.
Yeah, I mean Johnny did the last one. We set up on a Sunday morning.
I'll be busy that day. I can't make Sunday.
Yeah. We drove down on the Sunday morning, so 4 hours drive there, and we set up. It took us till about 10 o'clock at night to set up, then drove to the hotel. Then Johnny was there 5 days, And then I drove back down on the Friday night, and we took the stand down on a Friday night and then drove home on the Saturday morning. Just me and him. And when Alan he'll kill us for saying this, but when Alan said, we're going to do Mac, me and Johnny looked at each other and went, oh, for fuck's sake. But it's like, I think we're like Germany supporting us quite a bit with this one as well.
Cool.
So a lot of the stuff that we had in Essen, we're going to be able to have for our stand.
Brilliant.
So, and the marketing team over there were helping to design it, where we didn't really have that the last time.
Okay.
So it was just me and Johnny, two Geordie Shore boys turning up and just saying, where the fuck's all this going to go? We had 2 vans full of shit and we were like, let's just blag it. And then Alan did what he does, turns up on the Monday morning and tries to change it all. But, it worked out. But our stand's going to be bigger than last time. And obviously we're going to have more. I think we're trying to cram too much. What about 8 machines welding last time?
Right.
There wasn't enough room for customers on the stand. So I think we'll have a couple. Johnny will be having like the TIG speed and the Titan on. And then there's going to be the XQ cell. And then just like we'll have a stand with a smaller inverters with Pico MIGs, Pico TIGs and all that.
Cool. That'd be really good. I remember the first time I met Johnny. I said, what helmet are you using, Johnny? He said, I'm using this one, but I were at this show and this really fit bird tried selling me this particular helmet and he said she was stunning. and that was the first conversation I had with Johnny. I'd never forget that conversation. But he's been with the company a long time. 9 years?
8, yeah. I joined about a year after I did.
Yeah, 9 years then.
He's like, me and him are like best mates outside of work anyway.
And did that happen before? Or
no,
I'd
never met him until he worked for one of our customers. And I don't know how it wasn't me that poached him. He just turned up one day for an interview in a Chelsea top.
In a Chelsea top?
Yeah. So straight away I didn't like him. I thought, tosser coming to an interview in a Chelsea top. And then Alan interviewed him and then like he just started and it was one of those, it was a time when we were doing a lot of renovation at EWM. You remember the old demo bay? We didn't have a mezzanine floor.
No. So you put all that in, didn't you?
Well, me and Johnny, just the first sort of week Johnny was there, me and him were knocking walls down with sledgehammers and kicking fuck out of stuff and ripping. It was just mad. And ever since then, like we see, I would say we play football together, we play snooker together, we're like best mates outside of work.
Brilliant.
Now. So he's still mental though.
Nut job. Brilliant.
But he's a fucking good welder. Right,
we'll leave it there then, buddy. But awesome. And you'll be back in 6 weeks to do another episode.
Absolutely.
Awesome, mate. Brilliant.
The Weld Like Bazza podcast is sponsored by MS Welding, the #1 welding solution provider. mswelding.co.uk